So this position is white to play, and supposedly this was a casual game played between Lasker and Capablanca in 1914. Although I have a strong suspicion, and I think Gary Kasparov wrote something similar in his My Great Predecessors, it seems like this was a composed position. Probably they did not actually play and reach this position. But if they did, that's cool. It's like one of the most aesthetic, simple positions that I've seen. Anyway, so with white to play, before you even start calculating, which probably you guys have already started, let's see, what moves could possibly happen? All right, Eat Future Master, I see your move. If you could back it up with some variations, that would be great. But for anyone who hasn't seen this already, you might want to just do a candidate move search first, which means we're not judging any moves. Candidate searching is not judging, it's not analyzing. We're just seeing the options before we play. And usually if you evaluate the position somewhere in there, it will help a lot, seeing the interesting features. Okay, so Mutasems has spotted all these rook moves and 2 king moves. D7, C8. There's also king E7 just for completeness, but I'm sure you ruled that out already with some cursory analysis, right? You just lose the rook for free. However, ruling out moves just because they give a piece for free is not necessarily right, as we will see. So we can probably figure this out by eliminating a couple options. For instance, let me see how many of these moves instantly end the game. All right, Jumping Chess Horse is asking, did this channel used to have a different name? Yes, it did. My channel name used to be Chess Players Made Better, but I changed the name to match, I guess, my real life moniker. All right, thanks for the follow, Inner Mirror. I really appreciate it. So Yeet Future Master put Rook A8, Knight takes A8, King C8, Knight C7, King takes C7. So that's interesting. Let's actually talk about why we should be analyzing Rook A8, because Yeet Future Master is already on it. So in this position, we have multiple options, as has already been pointed out. These are the only sane options, basically. King E7, you lose the rook, and your king is not active. It seems really strange. So if we look at Rook B7, it's kind of similar. King takes, our king is not active. We don't seem to have any good reasons to play Rook B7. But it's interesting what happens when we analyze, all right, King D7 is actually the same problem. But maybe it's not super obvious. After King D7, King takes B8, you might think I'm going to go get this pawn. Because if they play King A7, you take their knight. But they have 2 ways to deal with that. One, they can protect the pawn, although this position seems a little bit strange. And they can also just sacrifice immediately to achieve a comfortable draw. So we can actually eliminate a couple of these moves just by inspection. And what we find when we look at King C8 is that it's almost like a stalemate, actually. But the main problem here, actually, anyone want to point out, what's the problem with King C8? If we can just like keep the rook and have a long-term advantage, what's wrong with that? Yeah, your notation's a little off, but knight takes b5, correct. And in this position, even though black has a knight and a pawn against a rook, this is about equal, and only black can push for a win here, in my opinion, even though their king is very oddly placed, because they have the potential to promote. So at some point, you'll probably have to sacrifice your rook for the pawn anyway, but it's really just a draw. We could already make a draw here by playing Rook b6, because one knight and a king cannot checkmate one king. There's just no possible way. If you're not convinced, you can just try it at home. And another interesting thing is after Rook c8, they can play King b7 or Knight takes b5 the same. So this really leaves just one move left. It's Rook a8. So the trick here is first off considering rook a8. Many people will not consider it. It just looks too ridiculous. It's attacked in 2 different ways. They don't even have to take it. However, this move wins by force. If you just consider it and then analyze it, you'll figure that out. So Yeet Future Master already gave one interesting line. He told what happens if the knight takes. This is a Zugzwang position. They can't move the king, so they can only move the knight, but it has only one lame square. We take that, and in this position, since this pawn is on the 6th rank and we're going to take it with our king, next move, this position is a win. And in case you're not sure, we can play either of these king moves. And whatever black does, like for instance if they wait, they eventually get squeezed out, like toothpaste from the bottle, and they never go back in. And this is going to be a queen, or a rook, or whatever we want it to be. So that's why it's not so good. So that was just one line though, right? It's easy to be skeptical about one line. So the other 2 options, we should consider candidate moves always for our opponents as well, right? So they have knight takes, but they also have king takes and also king b7. Many people don't even consider king b7. So this is another reason why the candidate moves method is important. You can only be completely sure that you are winning if you consider all the options that your opponent could play. So anyone want to offer a line for maybe king takes, or yeah, let's start with king takes a8 because that's really more critical. The evaluation of king b7 depends on what happens after king takes a8 a little bit. Also, big thanks to recent followers to Kid92 and Brooklyn Raw. Recent followers. Alright, so king takes c7 after king takes a8, I suppose. King a7, king c6, king a8, king takes b6. And that's a good place to stop because that's exactly where we were before in the other line. There's no reason to calculate the whole same line again, so that's good. We've eliminated king takes a8 now because of king c7 and king c6. And no matter where they put the king, a8 or b8, because the pawn is on the 6th rank, it's a win for white. If it's not the 6th rank, things are a little bit different. If you guys are not sure about that, maybe I'll make some endgame stuff for you to check out. But you can also try the Lichess, what's the word for it? Learning module. They have some examples where you have to like win with a king and a pawn. You guys could try that out. So the only thing left is what happens after rook a8 and then king b7. So what's this line? What's going to happen? Atarv, welcome. It is rook a7, in fact. Meet Future Master asked me if I played in, I think, Offer Spill Relief tournament. No, I haven't played any tournaments recently. Monosims, thanks for the follow. Yes, it is rook a7. So the idea with rook a7 is completely the same as the other line, so we don't really need to analyze more. We just force them into the same variation that we've already seen. They go here, we go there. They play the only move they can, and then we win. And just to show this win, just in time, we're going to make a queen. So this is the idea. Inner mirror, yeah, that's absolutely correct. So they're going to have to face this rook a7. So this is another one that I think is primarily difficult because of candidate moves. It's not difficult because of intense calculation. In fact, if you have any familiarity with this position with only the 2 pawns on the board, then you're already in good shape to solve this. You just have to think, what if I play rook a8? That's the only thing. But many people automatically make a certain move. They just they look at a move, they think that's a good move, and they play that move. They'll play a move like this. or they'll play king c7, which is stalemate. Which actually no one mentioned before. It is a candidate move, but we can easily see it's stalemate.